The pistol cracked across Martha's cheekbone with a sickening thud. "Where's the money, old bitch?" The taller of the two masked men grabbed her gray hair, yanking her head back. His partner, twitchy, skeletal, pupils like pinpricks, waved a sawed-off shotgun at the terrified cashier. The fluorescent lights of Lopez Corner Grocery buzzed overhead, indifferent to the violence unfolding beneath them. Martha's knees buckled. At 72, her bones were brittle, her reflexes slow. She hit the linoleum hard, her canvas shopping bag spilling its contents, a can of tomato soup, knitting needles, a small paper bag of peppermints. "Please," she whispered, tasting copper. "Please, I don't." The boot caught her in the ribs. That's when Lucas moved. The 17-year-old had been at the back of the store, comparing prices on the cheapest loaves of bread, trying to make his last $5 stretch until Friday's paycheck. He was bone-thin, his second-hand jacket 2 sizes too large, his sneakers held together with duct tape. He had a physics exam tomorrow. He had rent due in 3 days. He had exactly zero business being a hero. But when he saw the old woman's blood on the floor, when he saw her trying to shield her face with trembling hands, something inside him snapped. Not today. Not again. Lucas charged. He didn't think about the guns. Didn't think about the fact that he weighed maybe 130 pounds soaking wet. Didn't think about anything except his mother, dying alone on a Chicago sidewalk 6 years ago while strangers stepped around her body. He slammed into the tall gunman with his full body weight, driving his shoulder into the man's solar plexus. They crashed into a display of canned goods, metal clattering, the pistol skidding across the floor. "Run!" Lucas screamed at Martha. "Get out!" Then the world exploded in pain. The shotgun stock caught him across the temple. Lucas's vision went white, then red, then black at the edges. He tasted blood, felt his knees turn to water. But he stayed between them and the old woman, his arms spread wide, his body a shield. "Take my money," he gasped, fumbling for his wallet with shaking hands. "Take it. Just leave her alone. Please." The twitchy one giggled, a high, unhinged sound. "Tough guy, huh?" The kick to his stomach drove all the air from Lucas's lungs. He doubled over, gagging. Another blow, this one to his kidneys. He hit the ground next to Martha, his vision swimming. "Lucas." The old woman's voice was steady despite the blood on her face. Her weathered hand found his. "Lucas, baby, don't." How did she know his name? He'd only helped her reach a can of soup 5 minutes ago. But her fingers were warm, her grip surprisingly strong, and Lucas held on like a drowning man. "Cops!" the cashier screamed. Somebody called the cops. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. The robbers panicked, grabbing what cash they could, the tall one snatching Martha's worn leather purse as an afterthought. They ran, leaving destruction and blood in their wake. Lucas tried to stay conscious, tried to make sure Martha was okay. But darkness rushed up to meet him, and the last thing he heard before the world went black was the old woman's voice, soft, but somehow terrible. "Jackson? Baby, it's Ma. Someone hurt me tonight." A pause. Then, quieter, colder. "And they nearly killed the boy who saved me." Lucas woke to the smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of machines. His head felt like someone had stuffed it with broken glass. Every breath sent sharp pains through his ribs. When he tried to move, his whole body screamed in protest. Hospital. He was in a hospital. Oh God, the bill. Panic flooded through him, sharper than any physical pain. Lucas forced his eyes open, squinting against the harsh light. Private room. Monitors. For drip. This wasn't the emergency room. This was the kind of place with actual privacy, actual care, actual costs that would bury him. He had $127 in his checking account. He had no insurance. He had no family. He had to get out. Lucas sat up too fast, groaning as his ribs protested. He fumbled with the 4, his fingers clumsy and weak. The heart monitor started beeping frantically. Somewhere, an alarm went off. "Whoa, easy there, kid." The door opened, and Lucas froze. The man filling the doorway was massive, 6'4", maybe 260, all leather and muscle and salt and pepper beard. His vest bore patches Lucas couldn't quite read, but the words Black Vipers MC stood out in bold letters across his shoulders. Behind him, another biker, this one younger with a shaved head and a neck tattoo of a serpent. Lucas's mouth went dry. I'm sorry, I can't pay for. You ain't going nowhere, son. The bearded one stepped inside, and despite his size, his movements were gentle. Doc says you got a concussion, 3 cracked ribs, and a kidney that's going to be pissing blood for a week. So you're going to sit your skinny ass down and heal up. But I can't. The money. Already handled. I don't understand. Lucas looked from one biker to the other, his exhausted brain struggling to make sense of this. Why are you who? Orders from the top, the younger one said with a slight smile. Your family now, kid. Family takes care of family. I don't have family. You do now? Before Lucas could process that impossible statement, a familiar voice cut through the confusion. Marcus, stop looming. You're scaring him. Martha shuffled into the room, and Lucas's heart nearly stopped. The old woman looked smaller in the hospital light, but no less formidable. A purple bruise bloomed along her left cheekbone where the pistol had struck. Her silver hair was neatly pinned, and she carried a basket that smelled of fresh bread and something savory. Mrs. I'm sorry, I don't know your last name, Lucas stammered. Are you okay? Did they hurt you badly? Martha's expression softened. She shooed the bikers out with a wave of her hand, and to Lucas's shock, they obeyed immediately, ducking out of the room like chastised children. I'm fine, sweet boy. A few bruises, nothing more. She settled into the chair beside his bed, pulling out knitting needles and yarn. But you, Lord, child, you scared 10 years off my life. I'm sorry. Don't you dare apologize. Her needles clicked steadily. You saved me. Took a beating meant for an old woman you didn't even know. Lucas looked down at his hands, at the 4 taped to his arm, at the hospital bracelet marking him as John Doe, patient number 4477. You would have done the same. Most people wouldn't have. Martha's eyes, sharp and knowing, studied him. The cashier hid behind the counter. 2 other customers ran out the door. But you, a skinny kid with nothing to lose and everything to fear, you stood between me and those guns. My mom died because nobody helped her, Lucas whispered. The words escaped before he could stop them. 6 years of grief and guilt spilling out. She had a heart attack on the corner of Madison and State. People walked past her for 20 minutes before someone called 911. By then it was too late. Martha's knitting needles stilled. I promised myself I'd never be one of those people. Lucas continued, his voice cracking. I'd never walk past someone who needed help, even if I couldn't do much, even if it was stupid. It wasn't stupid, baby. Martha reached over and took his hand. Her skin was soft, wrinkled, warm. It was the bravest thing I've seen in 40 years. I didn't feel brave. I felt terrified. That's what makes it brave. They sat in silence for a moment. The only sound the steady beep of the heart monitor and the whisper of yarn through Martha's fingers. Those men outside, Lucas finally said. The bikers. Why are they here? Martha smiled. A mysterious, knowing smile that made her eyes crinkle. They're here because I asked them to be. You protected me, so now they protect you. That's how family works. But I'm not. You are now. She patted his hand. Now rest. And when you wake up, I'm going to feed you properly. You're nothing but skin and bones. Lucas wanted to argue, wanted to explain that he couldn't accept charity, that he'd figure out the hospital bill somehow, that he didn't deserve this kindness. But exhaustion pulled at him like a tide, and Martha's presence felt safe in a way nothing had felt safe in 6 years. He closed his eyes. He slept. 3 days later, Lucas was discharged with strict instructions to rest, avoid strenuous activity, and follow up in 2 weeks. The bill never materialized. Every time he asked about it, the nurses smiled and changed the subject. The hospital administrator, when cornered, simply said it had been taken care of and refused to elaborate. Lucas's protests fell on deaf ears. Now he stood in the hospital lobby, his few belongings in a plastic bag, wondering how he'd get back to his studio apartment across town. The bus fare was $2.50 each way. He'd have to walk. You ready, kid? Lucas turned to find the bearded biker from before, Marcus, Martha had called him, waiting by the automatic doors. He wore the same leather vest, the same unreadable expression. Ready for what? Sunday dinner. Marcus said it like it explained everything. Ma's orders. She wants you at the house. I appreciate it, but I should really get home. I have work tomorrow, and I've already missed. Called your boss. Told him you're on medical leave for 2 weeks. Lucas blinked. You what? Paid leave, Marcus added. You'll get your regular wages. Don't worry about it. I don't understand. Who are you people? Come to dinner, Marcus said simply. All your questions get answered there. Against his better judgment, against every instinct that screamed this was too good to be true, that there had to be a catch, Lucas followed Marcus to the parking lot. The motorcycle was a beast, a Harley-Davidson Road King, black and chrome, with saddlebags and a passenger seat. Marcus handed Lucas a helmet. Ever ridden before? No. Hold on tight. Lean when I lean. Don't put your feet down, it stops. Lucas climbed on awkwardly, his ribs protesting. The engine roared to life beneath them, vibrating through his bones, and then they were moving. The city blurred past. Lucas had lived in this neighborhood his whole life, but he'd never seen it like this. Wind in his face, the rumble of the engine drowning out his anxious thoughts, the world reduced to motion and sound, and the smell of leather and exhaust. They rode for 20 minutes, leaving the cramped streets of his neighborhood for wider roads, then onto a highway that curved through industrial zones and warehouses. Finally, Marcus turned onto a gravel drive, and Lucas's breath caught. The compound sprawled before them, a main building that looked like a converted warehouse, surrounded by smaller structures, a garage, scattered motorcycles, and people, dozens of them, men and women in leather vests, the black Vipers patch prominent on every back. They milled around picnic tables, worked on bikes, laughed and talked and lived. Marcus killed the engine. In the sudden silence, Lucas heard music, classic rock drifting from open windows, and smelled something incredible cooking. Welcome to the Viper's Den, Marcus said, helping Lucas off the bike. Don't look so scared. Ma would kill us if we hurt you. That's not as reassuring as you think it is. Marcus laughed, a deep, genuine sound. Come on. She's waiting. They walked through the compound, and Lucas felt dozens of eyes on him. Conversations paused. People stared. He shrank into himself, trying to look smaller, less noticeable. Then someone called out, "That the kid?" "Yeah," Marcus replied. "The Queen's shield." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lucas caught fragments. Took a beating for her. Just a kid. Ma's already adopted him. They reached the main building. Marcus held the door open, and Lucas stepped into chaos. The space was huge, an open floor plan with a bar, pool tables, a massive TV, worn couches, and a long dining table that could seat 50. The walls were covered with photographs, bikes, rallies, memorial patches for fallen members, and prominently, pictures of Martha. Martha laughing at a barbecue. Martha cutting a birthday cake. Martha flanked by bikers, all of them looking at her with obvious devotion. "Lucas, there you are." The woman herself emerged from what looked like a kitchen, wiping her hands on an apron. She looked completely at home here, comfortable and commanding in equal measure. "Mrs. Lucas started." "Ma," she corrected. "Everyone calls me Ma. You will too." She pulled him into a gentle hug, mindful of his injuries, and Lucas felt something crack inside his chest. When was the last time someone had hugged him? When was the last time someone had been happy to see him? "Come sit. Dinner's almost ready, and I want you eating properly." Martha guided him to the long table. "Jackson, get in here." Lucas froze. The man who entered the room redefined the word intimidating. He stood well over 6 feet, broad-shouldered and thick with muscle that spoke of decades of hard labor and harder fights. His face was weathered, scarred, with a crooked nose that had been broken multiple times and cold gray eyes that missed nothing. His hair, still mostly dark despite the silver at his temples, was pulled back in a ponytail. The leather vest he wore bore more patches than anyone else's, and across the back, in bold letters, "President." Every person in the room straightened when he walked in. Conversations died. Even the music seemed to lower in volume. This was a man people feared. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, and Lucas's heart hammered against his bruised ribs. Was this it? The moment when he found out what all this kindness really cost? The man stopped in front of Martha, and his entire demeanor changed. "Hey, Ma." His voice, rough as gravel, gentled. He bent down and kissed her cheek with surprising tenderness. "How you feeling?" "Better, now that this boy's awake." Martha gestured to Lucas. "Jackson, this is Lucas. Lucas, this is my son, Jackson Reynolds." Everyone calls him Viper. Lucas's brain short-circuited. "Son?" Viper turned those cold gray eyes on Lucas, and for a long moment, nobody spoke. Lucas felt like he was being x-rayed, every secret fear and weakness laid bare. Then Viper extended his hand. Thank you, he said simply, for protecting her. Lucas shook his hand, or rather, let his hand be swallowed by Viper's massive grip. She would have done the same. Maybe, but you're the one who did it. Viper's expression was unreadable. Marcus told me you took a pistol whip meant for her head. Took kicks that would have broken her ribs. You stepped between my mother and men with guns, knowing you'd probably die. I didn't think. Exactly. You didn't think. You just moved. Viper glanced at Martha, something soft and fierce in his eyes. Do you understand what she means to this club? To this family? Lucas looked around at the faces watching them. Hard men and women, covered in tattoos and scars. People who looked like they'd lived rough lives and made hard choices. Every single one of them was looking at Martha with the same expression. Love. Pure, uncomplicated love. She's your mom, Lucas said quietly. She's the mom, Viper corrected. She fed us when we were hungry. Housed us when we had nowhere to go. Nursed us when we were sick. Buried our dead and held our hands through the grief. This club exists because of her. We exist because of her. He turned back to Lucas, and now there was something almost like respect in his eyes. You saved her life, kid. Maybe you don't realize it yet, but those tweakers were high enough to kill her and not even remember it. If you hadn't been there, his voice caught. If you hadn't been there, I'd be planning a funeral instead of a dinner. I'm sorry, Lucas whispered, not knowing what else to say. Don't be sorry. Be hungry. Viper clapped him on the shoulder, carefully, mindful of his injuries. And be ready to meet the family. All 300 of them. 300. Martha laughed. Not all at once, baby. Just the local chapter tonight. About 40 people. 40. Lucas's voice cracked. Relax, Marcus said from behind him. We don't bite. Much. Someone rang a bell, and suddenly the room was filling with people. They came from outside, from other rooms, appearing like they'd been waiting for this signal. Men and women, young and old, all wearing those leather vests, all gathering around the long table. Lucas found himself seated at the head of the table, right next to Martha. Viper took the seat on her other side. Food appeared. Platters of roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, fresh rolls, salad, and more dishes than Lucas could count. His stomach growled audibly. Martha smiled and started filling his plate. Eat, sweet boy. Your skin and bones. Ma, you say that to everyone, someone called out. Because it's true. None of you eat properly. Laughter rippled through the group. Lucas picked up his fork with shaking hands, overwhelmed by the sheer normalcy of it all. These people, these terrifying, leather-clad bikers, were just a family having Sunday dinner. Before we eat, Viper said, his voice cutting through the chatter, I want to make something clear. The room fell silent. This kid right here, Lucas, he's under our protection now. Anyone fucks with him, they fuck with the Vipers. Anyone hurts him, they answer to me. Viper's eyes swept the room. And anyone who makes him feel unsafe or unwelcome in this house answers to Ma. That drew nervous chuckles. Apparently, answering to Ma was worse than answering to Viper. He's family, Viper concluded. Spread the word. Family. The room echoed in unison. Lucas felt tears prick his eyes. He blinked them back furiously, embarrassed, but Martha squeezed his hand under the table. Now eat, she commanded. And someone pass the gravy before it gets cold. Lucas spent the next 2 hours in a daze. He ate more food than he'd eaten in a month. People introduced themselves, names and faces blurred together, but everyone was friendly, respectful, almost protective. They asked about his injuries, his school, his plans. They didn't pry about his past, didn't push when he didn't want to talk. It felt like being wrapped in a warm blanket after years in the cold. After dinner, while people cleaned up and the party moved outside to a bonfire, Martha took Lucas to a quieter room, an office with comfortable chairs, photos on the walls, and a sense of lived-in warmth. Viper joined them, closing the door behind him. Time to talk truth, he said, settling into a chair that creaked under his weight. You've been patient, kid. You deserve answers. Lucas nodded, his stomach knotting with anxiety. Martha started. Those men who attacked us, they're in custody now. The police caught them? In a manner of speaking. Viper's expression was grim. They got picked up trying to pawn Ma's wedding ring. Funny thing about that ring, it's got an inscription. My father's name. Easy to trace. When we got word they'd been arrested, Martha continued, Jackson made sure they understood the severity of their mistake. Lucas frowned. What does that mean? It means, Viper said carefully, that they confess to everything. The robbery, the assault, their dealer's name, their crew's hideout. They sang like canaries, Lucas. And they're going away for a very long time. There was something in his tone, something dark and satisfied, that made Lucas wonder what exactly had happened between the arrest and the confession. But he decided he didn't want to know. The hospital bill, Lucas said instead. Who paid it? The club. Why? Viper leaned forward. Let me tell you a story, kid. 20 years ago, I was where you are now. 17, alone, angry at the world. I got in a fight with the wrong people, took a knife to the gut. Should have died in an alley like a dog. He pulled up his shirt, revealing a long, puckered scar across his abdomen. Ma found me, he continued. She wasn't my mother then. I didn't even know her. But she called an ambulance, stayed with me in the hospital, paid my bills, and when I got out, she gave me a choice. Keep running with gangs and die young, or join the Vipers and learn what family really means. I chose family, Viper said softly. Best decision I ever made. Martha's eyes were wet. He's not the only one. Half the people out there have similar stories. We take in strays, Lucas. The broken, the lost, the ones nobody else wants. We give them purpose, protection, a home. I don't understand, Lucas whispered. Why me? Because you have the rarest thing in this world, Martha said. A good heart. You risked everything for a stranger. That's not something you can teach. Either you have it, or you don't. Viper nodded. The Vipers don't recruit heroes, kid. We create them. We take people with potential and give them the support they need to become who they're meant to be. You want me to join? Lucas's voice was small. No, Viper said firmly. You're 17. You've got school, college hopefully, a whole life ahead of you. We're not asking you to ride with us or take the patch or any of that. We're offering you family, Martha clarified. Support. A place to belong. Help with school, with rent, with whatever you need. No strings attached. There's always strings. Not here. Viper's eyes were steady, honest. You saved my mother. You don't owe us anything, Lucas. We owe you. And we always pay our debts. Lucas looked between them, this terrifying biker king and this kind old woman, and felt something inside him break. Or maybe heal. He couldn't tell the difference anymore. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. I've been alone for so long. I don't know how to let people in. That's okay, Martha said gently. You'll learn. We'll teach you. What if I mess up? What if I? Then we help you fix it. Viper stood, crossing to the window that overlooked the bonfire. Dozens of people gathered around the flames, laughing, drinking, living. That's what family does, kid. We don't abandon each other when things get hard. We don't walk away when someone falls. We stand together. Lucas thought about his mother, dying alone. He thought about the 6 years he'd spent barely surviving, working himself to exhaustion, pretending he didn't need anyone. He thought about the emptiness that had lived inside him for so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to be whole. Okay, he whispered. Martha's face lit up. Okay. I'll try. I'll be part of this. Your family. She pulled him into a hug, and this time Lucas didn't try to hold back the tears. He cried into her shoulder like the lost child he was, and she held him like the mother he'd needed. When he finally pulled back, embarrassed and raw, Viper was smiling. Actually smiling. Good, the president said. Now let's go outside. People are going to want to officially welcome you. The bonfire crackled and sparked, sending embers dancing into the night sky. Lucas stood at its edge, surrounded by 40 bikers who'd formed a loose circle around him. Marcus stepped forward, holding a leather vest. Not the full club vest. Lucas noticed immediately that it bore no patches, no insignia. Just plain black leather. This is temporary, Marcus explained. It marks you as family, under our protection. When you're older, if you want to earn the full patch, that's your choice. But for now, this says you're one of us. He held it out. Lucas took it with trembling hands. Put it on, someone called. Lucas slipped the vest over his thin shoulders. It was too big. He needed to grow into it. But it was warm, and it smelled of leather and smoke, and somehow it felt right. Viper raised a bottle. To Lucas. The Queen's Shield. To Lucas. The crowd roared. They drank. Beer, whiskey, soda for those who didn't drink. And Lucas felt the weight of their acceptance like a physical thing. Someone started telling stories. War stories, stupid stories, Funny stories about club members who weren't there to defend themselves. Lucas listened, laughed, slowly relaxed. A woman with gray streaks in her long hair sat down beside him. "I'm Sarah," she said. "I run the club's finances. Heard you're working part-time at a warehouse." "Yeah, night shift, for days a week." "Good money." Lucas hesitated. "Enough to cover rent and food." "Barely. What are you studying?" "Physics. I want to be an engineer. Maybe aerospace." He said it quietly, like admitting a foolish dream. Sarah nodded thoughtfully. "The club has a scholarship fund. For members and their families. Covers tuition, books, living expenses. You interested?" Lucas's heart stopped. I couldn't." "Why not? Your family now." "We invest in family. But I haven't done anything to earn." "You saved Ma's life," Sarah interrupted. "That earns you everything we've got, kid. Besides, we need more members with brains. Most of these idiots can barely read." "I heard that," someone shouted. Sarah grinned. "Applications on the website. Fill it out this week. You'll have an answer within a month." She stood and walked away, leaving Lucas reeling. Full scholarship. No more working until 3 a.m. and dragging himself to school. No more choosing between textbooks and food. No more grinding himself into dust just to survive. Overwhelming, isn't it? Martha settled beside him, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. "The generosity. I don't deserve this." "Stop that." Her voice was sharp. "You stood between me and death, Lucas. A boy I'd known for 5 minutes. You took blows that should have killed you. You asked them to take your money, your last $5, if they'd just leave me alone." She took his hand. "You showed me that good people still exist in this world. That courage isn't just for the strong or the trained. That sometimes the smallest person in the room has the biggest heart." Lucas couldn't speak past the lump in his throat. "Let us help you," Martha said softly. "Not because you owe us, but because you deserve it. Because somewhere, your mother is watching, and she'd want to know you're safe. Cared for. Love. You think she's watching?" "I know she is. And I think she's proud of the man you're becoming." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the fire, surrounded by the low rumble of conversation and laughter. Lucas felt something he hadn't felt in 6 years. Peace. Lucas returned to school Monday morning in a borrowed car. One of the Vipers, a woman named Rita who had a day off, insisted on driving him. "Can't have you taking the bus with cracked ribs," she'd said. "Ma would kill me." Word had spread. Lucas wasn't sure how. Small neighborhood. Gossip moved fast. But everyone seemed to know about the robbery. About what he'd done. Teachers who'd barely noticed him before stopped him in hallways to ask if he was okay. Classmates approached with new respect in their eyes. The principal called him to the office, not for punishment, but to commend his bravery and offer counseling services if he needed them. Lucas went through his day in a daze, his new leather vest folded carefully in his locker. He'd wanted to wear it, but felt self-conscious. What if people asked questions he didn't know how to answer? At lunch, he sat in his usual spot, alone in the corner, physics textbook propped open, when 3 seniors approached. Lucas recognized them. Football players, popular, the kind of kids who'd never acknowledged his existence before. "Hey," the tallest one said. "You're Lucas, right? The kid who fought those robbers." Lucas tensed. "Yeah, that's badass, man. Seriously." The boy stuck out his hand. "I'm Derek. This is Mike and Justin. We wanted to say that was really brave. What you did." Lucas shook his hand warily. "Thanks. Those guys could have killed you," Mike added. "But you did it anyway. For some random old lady." "She wasn't random," Lucas said quietly. "She was a person who needed help." Derek nodded slowly. Yeah, man. Respect." They left, and Lucas sat there, confused. Since when did people like that notice people like him? His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Sarah from the club. Sent you the scholarship app link. Fill it out tonight. No excuses. S." Lucas smiled despite himself. Another text, this one from Martha. "How's school, baby? Eating lunch? I packed you something. Check your bag." He opened his backpack and found a brown paper bag he didn't remember packing. Inside, a sandwich on fresh bread, an apple, homemade cookies, and a note in shaky handwriting. "Eat. You're still too skinny. Love, Ma." Lucas felt his eyes sting. He ate every bite. 3 weeks later, Lucas sat in a courtroom. The trial for the 2 robbers, identified as Kyle Jennings and Travis Moore, was mercifully quick. With their confessions, security footage, and testimony from the store cashier, The prosecution had an airtight case. Lucas had been called to testify about what he'd witnessed, about his actions, about his injuries. Martha sat behind him in the gallery. So did Viper. And Marcus. And at least 20 other Vipers, all dressed in their vests, silent and watchful. The defendant's lawyer objected to their presence, claimed they were intimidating his clients. The judge took one look at the bikers' expressionless faces and overruled. "This is a public courtroom," she said dryly. "Unless they're disrupting proceedings, they have every right to be here." Kyle and Travis looked terrified. They kept glancing at the Vipers, then quickly looking away. Lucas noticed bruises on both of them, faded now, but still visible. Bruises that hadn't been mentioned in any police report. He wondered, but he didn't ask. His testimony was straightforward. He described what he saw, what he did, what they did to him and Martha. The defense tried to poke holes, suggested maybe Lucas had escalated the situation, made things worse by intervening. "Those men were beating a 72-year-old woman," Lucas said evenly. "I didn't make anything worse. I kept them from making it fatal." The defense attorney opened his mouth, caught sight of Viper's cold stare, and wisely changed tactics. Martha's testimony was brief. She described the attack, her fear, Lucas's intervention. When asked if she'd been permanently harmed, she said, "Physically? I'll heal. But those boys tried to take something from me that can't be replaced, my sense of safety, my trust in the world." She looked directly at Kyle and Travis. "They failed. Because of Lucas, I'm still here. I still trust that good people exist. And I'll make sure everyone knows what real courage looks like." The jury deliberated for 40 minutes. Guilty on all counts: armed robbery, aggravated assault, weapons charges, drug possession. The judge sentenced them to 12 years each, minimum security reduced due to their cooperation and first-time offender status. "You're young men," she told them. "You made catastrophic choices. But you have a chance to rehabilitate, to become better. I suggest you take it." As they were led away in handcuffs, Kyle looked back at the gallery. His eyes found Viper, and whatever he saw there made him go white. Viper just smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. Outside the courthouse, Lucas breathed deeply, relief flooding through him. It was over. They'd been held accountable. Justice had been served. "Feel better?" Martha asked, linking her arm through his. Yeah, I do." "Good." She patted his hand. "Now let's go home. I'm making pot roast tonight, and you're coming to dinner. I have homework. Bring it. Someone can help you with math. Jackson's surprisingly good with calculus." Lucas laughed. "Seriously? Went to college for 2 years before he joined the club," Martha said proudly. "My boy's smart. Just don't tell him I told you. He likes people to underestimate him." They walked to the parking lot together, surrounded by Vipers, and Lucas realized something. This was normal now. This family, this protection, this belonging, it was his new normal. And he'd never felt safer in his life. Life settled into a rhythm. Lucas applied for the scholarship and was accepted within 2 weeks. Full ride to the local university, starting next fall. Engineering program. Dorm room included. He cut his warehouse hours down to 2 nights a week, just enough to keep pocket money and maintain independence. The Vipers had offered to cover everything, but Lucas needed to contribute something. Needed to feel like he was earning his place. Martha respected that. "Stubborn," she said fondly. "Just like Jackson." He spent most weekends at the compound now, helping with maintenance, doing homework in Ma's kitchen while she cooked, attending the occasional club event. He still wore the plain vest, hadn't earned patches, didn't want to until he really understood what they meant. But people knew who he was. Word had spread through the city's underground. The kid who saved Ma. The Queen's shield. Under Viper's protection. It was a shield that got tested exactly 4 weeks after the trial. Lucas was walking home from school, taking his usual route through a residential area that was safe enough during daylight hours. His ribs had healed, his bruises faded. He felt almost normal again. That's when the car pulled up. Black sedan, tinted windows, expensive. It idled beside him for half a block before the back window rolled down. Lucas right. The man inside was maybe 40, slick back hair, expensive suit, cold eyes. Lucas didn't recognize him, but his instincts screamed danger. "Do I know you?" "No, but I know you." The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. "You're the kid who put Kyle and Travis behind bars." Lucas's stomach dropped. They put themselves there. Semantics. Point is, those boys worked for me. And now I'm short 2 employees because of you. Because of them, Lucas corrected, backing away. They chose to rob that store. They chose to assault people. I just made sure they didn't kill anyone. Brave kid. Stupid, but brave. The man's expression hardened. Here's the problem. You cost me money. You cost me manpower. And you did it while wearing a Viper's vest. I'm not. Save it. I know you're under their protection. I know Ma's taken you in like some stray puppy. He leaned forward. But Viper can't watch you 24/7. Sooner or later, you'll be alone. And when you are, when he is, a new voice cut in, you'll have to go through me. Lucas turned to find Marcus on his motorcycle, engine idling, eyes locked on the sedan. The man in the suit tensed. This is a private conversation. No, it's not. Marcus cut the engine and dismounted. At 6'4" and 260, he was an imposing figure. This is you threatening a kid under club protection, which makes it club business. I wasn't threatening. You absolutely were. Marcus pulled out his phone. Want me to call Viper? Let you explain to him why you're harassing Ma's boy. The temperature in the air seemed to drop 10 degrees. The man in the suit assessed Marcus, calculated odds, and apparently decided this wasn't a fight worth having. This isn't over, he said, looking at Lucas. Yeah, it is, Marcus replied. Drive away. Now. While you still can. The sedan pulled away smoothly, disappearing around a corner. Lucas realized he was shaking. Who was that? Danny Marquez. Mid-level dealer. Thinks he's bigger than he is. Marcus put a hand on Lucas's shoulder. You okay? He knew where I go to school. He was waiting for me. Yeah, that's a problem. Marcus pulled out his phone and dialed. Viper? We got a situation. 20 minutes later, Lucas sat in the club's office with Viper, Marcus, Sarah, and 3 other senior members. Marquez is small-time, Viper said, pacing. But he's connected to the Scorpions, the crew Kyle and Travis ran with before they went solo. He threatened you directly? Sarah asked Lucas. Not exactly. He implied that something would happen when I was alone. Classic intimidation tactic, one of the others said. Testing boundaries. Seeing if we'll respond. Viper's jaw clenched. He picked the wrong kid to test. We can't go to war over this, Sarah cautioned. The Scorpions are bigger than us. More manpower, more resources. If this escalates, I don't care. Viper's voice was flat. He threatened Ma's boy. He dies on that hill, not us. Jackson, Sarah started. No. He turned to face them all. I'm not negotiating on this. Lucas's family. Anyone who threatens family gets put down. End of discussion. The room fell silent. Lucas spoke up, his voice small. I don't want anyone to get hurt because of me. Viper's expression softened fractionally. Kid, that's not how this works. You didn't start this. Marquez did. And we're going to finish it. How? Leave that to us. Viper nodded to Marcus. Shadow him. 24/7 until this is resolved. Take shifts if you need to. On it. The rest of you, spread the word. Anyone sees Marquez or his crew near Lucas, near the school, near his apartment, I want to know immediately. They nodded and filed out, leaving Lucas alone with Viper. I'm sorry, Lucas whispered. Don't be. This isn't your fault. Viper sat down heavily. Marquez has been looking for an excuse to start shit with us for months. You just gave him one he thought he could use. What if he tries something anyway? What if? Then he learns why people fear the Vipers. Viper's eyes were hard. We protect our own, Lucas. Always. Even when it costs us. The next morning, Danny Marquez was found unconscious in his car, parked outside his apartment. No broken bones. No permanent damage. Just significant bruising, 2 black eyes, and a message spray painted on his windshield. Touch the kid, die screaming. The police investigated. Found nothing. No witnesses, no cameras caught anything useful, no evidence beyond Marquez himself. When questioned, Marquez claimed he'd been jumped by unknown assailants. Declined to press charges. Refused to cooperate further. Word spread through the streets like wildfire. The Vipers had sent a message. The Queen's shield was untouchable. Lucas heard about it from Sarah, who told him matter-of-factly while reviewing his scholarship paperwork. Did Viper? Lucas started. Viper was at a legitimate business meeting with lawyers until midnight, Sarah said carefully. He has 18 witnesses who can confirm his whereabouts. But nothing. What happened to Marquez is unfortunate. Karma, maybe. Justice, definitely. She looked at him steadily. Some questions are better left unasked, Lucas. He understood. And if he was honest with himself, He didn't want to know the details. Marquez never bothered him again. Neither did anyone from the Scorpions. Lucas went to school, did his homework, worked his reduced hours, and gradually stopped looking over his shoulder. Martha never mentioned the incident. When Lucas brought it up once, she just said, "People who threaten children learn lessons the hard way. That's all you need to know." Spring arrived, and with it, Lucas's high school graduation. He'd finished top of his class, 3.97 GPA, multiple scholarships, acceptance letters from 3 universities. He'd chosen the local one, partly for the Viper scholarship, partly because he couldn't imagine leaving this family he'd found. The graduation ceremony was held in the school's football stadium. Lucas sat among his classmates in cap and gown, watching parents and families fill the stands. He'd bought a single ticket, all he could afford, and given it to Martha. She'd smiled, kissed his cheek, and said she'd be there. What Lucas didn't expect was the army. When they called his name, and he walked across the stage to receive his diploma, he looked up at the stands, and his breath caught. Martha sat front and center, beaming with pride. But she wasn't alone. Surrounding her were dozens of Vipers. Viper himself sat beside her, massive and proud in a rare button-down shirt. Marcus, Sarah, Rita, all the familiar faces. And behind them, more club members than Lucas could count, all wearing their vests, all on their feet, applauding. The stadium erupted in cheers, not just for Lucas, but from the Vipers themselves. They whistled, shouted, made enough noise for 100 families. Lucas crossed the stage in a daze, diploma clutched in shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. He had family. 40 people who'd taken the day off work, driven across the city, paid for tickets, just to see him graduate. After the ceremony, they swarmed him. Hugs, congratulations, someone handing him a card thick with cash despite his protests. For college textbooks, Viper said firmly, "Don't argue with Ma." Martha pulled him aside, away from the crowd. Her eyes were wet. "Your mother would be so proud," she whispered. So proud of the man you've become. I couldn't have done this without you. Without all of you. Yes, you could have. You're stronger than you know, baby. She cupped his face. But I'm glad you didn't have to do it alone. They held each other while chaos swirled around them, and Lucas felt complete in a way he'd never imagined possible. That night, they held a party at the compound. Not just for Lucas. Several members had kids graduating or reaching milestones. But Lucas was the guest of honor. They'd hung banners, set up tables loaded with food, even hired a DJ. Lucas stood near the bonfire, watching people dance and laugh, still overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of what his life had become. 6 months ago, he'd been alone, broke, and scared. Now he had this. Family, support, hope. Viper approached, 2 beers in hand. He offered one to Lucas, who took it hesitantly. "I'm not 21. You're 18 as of last week, and this is private property. Take it." Lucas sipped the beer, not a fan of the taste, but appreciating the gesture. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the fire. "You ever regret it?" Lucas finally asked. Stepping in at the store that night, Viper was quiet for a long moment. "No. Best instinct I ever followed." He glanced at Lucas. "You changed everything, kid. Made me remember why we do this. Why the club exists. To protect people. To be family." Viper took a long pull from his beer. "We get so caught up in territory, in respect, in power struggles. We forget the core of it. We're supposed to take care of each other. Support each other. Be there when it matters." He turned to face Lucas fully. "You reminded us of that. A skinny kid with nothing to gain and everything to lose, throwing himself in front of bullets for a stranger. You shamed us, Lucas. Made us look at ourselves and realize we'd gotten soft. Complacent. I didn't mean to. I know. That's what makes it matter." Viper put a hand on his shoulder. "You're gonna do great things. Engineering degree, good job, normal life. But if you ever need us, if you ever need anything, you call. Day or night. Cross country or across town. We'll be there." "I know," Lucas said softly. "That's what family does." Viper smiled. A real, genuine smile. "Look at you. Already understanding things it took me 20 years to learn." Martha appeared, slightly out of breath from dancing. "Stop monopolizing him, Jackson. Other people want to congratulate the graduate." "Yes, Ma." Viper handed her his beer and wandered off, leaving them alone. Martha took Lucas's hand. "Walk with me." They strolled to the edge of the compound, away from the noise, where they could see stars beginning to emerge in the darkening sky. "I have something for you," Martha said, pulling a small box from her pocket. "Early graduation gift." Lucas opened it carefully. Inside was a simple silver chain with a pendant, a small motorcycle wheel, beautifully detailed. "It's not the club patch," Martha explained. "You haven't earned that, and maybe you never will. Maybe you'll choose a different path. But this is a reminder that you're part of our family, that we're proud of you, that no matter where life takes you, you'll always have a home here." Lucas couldn't speak. He just held the necklace, overwhelmed. Martha fastened it around his neck. "There. Perfect. Thank you," he managed. "For everything. For saving me. Baby, you saved me first." She smiled. Everything else was just returning the favor. They stood together, watching the stars, listening to music and laughter drift through the night air. Lucas thought about the scared, lonely kid he'd been 6 months ago. Thought about the choice he'd made in that store, the split-second decision to step between death and a stranger. It had changed everything. He'd found family, purpose, hope. He'd found home. And as Martha squeezed his hand and Viper called them back for cake, Lucas made a silent promise to the mother he'd lost. "I'll make you proud. I'll use this chance they've given me. I'll be the man you raised me to be. And I'll never, ever walk past someone who needs help. I promise." 5 years later, Lucas graduated from university with honors. He got a job at an aerospace company, designing components for satellites. He moved into a nice apartment, started dating a kind woman named Elena, built a life. But every Sunday, without fail, he went to the compound for dinner. He wore his plain vest with pride, never took the full patch, never needed to. He was family without it. When Martha turned 77, Lucas organized her birthday party. 300 Vipers from chapters across the state, all gathering to honor the woman who'd held them together. She cried when she saw him. Her skinny boy who'd grown into a confident man, who'd never forgotten where he came from or who'd given him a chance. "Thank you," she whispered, holding him tight. "For being you. For staying you." "Thank you," Lucas replied. "For seeing me when I was invisible." The party lasted until dawn. And when Lucas finally headed home, exhausted and happy, he touched the silver pendant he still wore around his neck. Family. The word meant something now. Meant everything. And it all started with a split-second choice in a corner grocery store. To stand between evil and innocence. To be brave when it would have been easier to run. To prove that one person, one skinny, scared kid, could change the world. Or at least, change 40 lives. Which, in the end, was more than enough.